Something I noticed when I was around academic circles in university or in graduate school was that some professors, some of my teachers, when I would ask a question or someone would ask them a question, they always knew the answer. And there was no qualification of it. It was, you ask a question, this is the answer. And others, when I asked a question or someone asked them a question, they'd say, I think it might be this. Or you know what? You know who would know? So-and-so down the hall. And when I reflected back on who they were, there was something interesting I noticed. The people who always seemed to have the answer were often those who taught in the lower level courses, the introduction, the survey courses, the people that were grad students, postdoc fellows. They were early on in their careers. And as I rose up in classes and had people that were professor, a visiting lecturer, or a full-time professor, or an associate professor, to a tenured professor, right at the top, those were the ones who most often seemed to say, I think the answer might be this, or I think the reason might be this. Or so-and-so would have a better answer for you than I could. Let's go ask them. It was something interesting. The more somebody knew, the more they had an expertise in a particular field, they seemed to have more humility about their knowledge, or a larger awareness of where their limits were, what they knew and what they didn't know. Something I always tell conversion students who, as they learn more about Judaism, they realize just how much there is to learn, that nobody knows it all. Part of the process, even part of rabbinical school, is being trained to know what we don't know. Just to learn about the corpus, all of the different texts, all of the different thinkers, all of the different things that were out there that before school we didn't even know existed. And it's a lifetime that's spent trying to learn them, trying to master a small portion of all there is to know in our tradition. So it's something I've been thinking about. Because in society, we don't often say we don't know. We often, in our lives, have an answer to most questions that come our way. And rarely, no matter what facts we're presented with, no matter what happens, rarely do we ever admit that the answers we give are wrong. Rarely are we ever willing to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It's a difficult thing to do, to admit we're wrong. Psychologists have studied this. You wouldn't be surprised. It was one of those studies, when I looked at it, that the answers didn't surprise me. More than half of people hate admitting they're wrong. It's actually close to 80% of people hate admitting they're wrong. I was surprised that there were 20% of people who don't hate admitting that they're wrong. But the reasons for it are a little bit interesting. We could probably assume most of them. It's our ego, it's our pride. We're afraid of being judged by others. We're afraid of being perceived as vulnerable. There's a cognitive dissonance that happens because we think of ourselves as smart people, we think of ourselves as intelligent people, so to admit we're wrong, to admit we don't know something, throws our image of ourself, our self-image, out of balance. Sometimes there's a fear of the consequences of admitting a mistake, professional or personal, social. Worst of all, sometimes it's a total lack of awareness. Not being able to comprehend that we're fallible, that we may have made a mistake, we may have done something wrong. Our tradition is one that begins with a holiday, not celebrating, but recognizing that we all make mistakes. Right? The Jewish calendar begins Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the new year. We have 10 days of repentance, 10 days to reflect, 10 days to think about all the things we may have done wrong in our personal lives, in our relationships, the things we may have done wrong to other human beings, and to ask forgiveness, to make amends, to do tshuva. And we have these days in shul where we sit there and we strike our chests and we tell God we're sorry for all of our mistakes that we've done wrong to God. Our sins are averot. But it's hard to really admit our mistakes, to really say what we've done wrong. The other day, my wife Lauren and I got in a little bit of a disagreement. I was convinced I had said something to her to do, and she didn't do it, and she was convinced I did not tell her to do it. Well, the conversation happened to happen in our daughter's room, and there's a nanny cam. So I did what every reasonable husband would do to prove I was right. I said, let's go watch the tape. It's not true. I watched the tape first myself to confirm before I was ready to then say, oh, see? But when I watched the tape, I was surprised. I was certain I had told her A, B, and C. I said A. I said B. In my mind, C was the natural conclusion of it. And that was really the crutch of it, right? What the crux of the argument, of our disagreement, was whether or not I had said that. I was certain I had said that. I watched the tape. I didn't. I thought it, I'm sure, but I didn't say it out loud. Well, I'm only telling you she's not here this morning because she doesn't know that I didn't know. With egg on my face, I'd go back and tell her she was right and I was wrong. And it was difficult for me for a few things, particularly going back to that idea of that cognitive dissonance. Recognizing that even though in my mind I'm a great communicator, I'm a professional communicator. Every week I stand up here and I speak to a group of people. I'm paid to communicate ideas. Every week I write messages. I send emails, I meet with people. Communication is 99% of what my job is, I think, as a rabbi. And then maybe 0.5% there may grammar, a little bit more in there where people ask halakhic questions. The far majority of it's communication. And to realize that in some moments, I am a poor communicator. I think something and don't say it out loud. And I think I said it out loud. Or I give part of the details, not enough of it. But the truth is, it was only by recognizing that and being able to say that to Lauren that there's room to grow. That there's room for me to recognize those moments where I might be doing that, or for me to be willing to hear from her, from others, when they say to me, you know, I think you might be doing that thing you do, where you say A and B, but you don't really say C out loud. You just assume we all know what you're talking about. But no one knows what you're talking about, Lewis. Without creating a space for people to say that to me, I can't grow. And the truth is, in life, we're all growing. None of us are perfect. I remember once someone said to me as an insult when I was a few years out of rabbinical school. I'm not that many years out now, but I'm a few more than that. You know, Rabbi, you really have a lot to learn. I said, great. Great. I hope to be a rabbi for another 3-4 decades. And if I've learned everything I could possibly learn now, this wouldn't be very enjoyable. If I'm the best I'm ever going to be in my career, if I've peaked. But the only way to make sure that we're not the best we're ever going to be in our career, or in our relationships, in our personal lives, whatever they are, that we've peaked, is being willing to have a little bit of that epistemological humility. Being willing to admit, maybe we're not always right. Maybe there are things we don't know. Maybe there are things and ways we can continue to grow. And creating a space where others feel comfortable coming forward to us in those moments. And a space where we're able to hear their feedback, their criticism. We're able to be vulnerable and perceive it not as an attack, but as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to be better. Perceive it as not them attacking us, but them helping us. I was thinking about this because today, it's not just Shabbat, today is Rosh Chodesh Adar. But it's strange because it's not just Rosh Chodesh Adar. Every few years, we have a leap year in the Jewish calendar. We have 2 months of Adar. We have Rosh Chodesh Adar 1 and Rosh Chodesh Adar 2. And it leads to all sorts of fun activities with or complications around different dates of Purim and holidays and Yortzites and other life cycle events. But it's easy to remember. Out of every 19 years in the Jewish calendar, we have 7 cycles, 7 years that are leap years. And all you have to do is take whatever Hebrew year it is, divide by 19, and if it ends, the remainder is 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, or 19, then you're in a leap year. Right? It's a straightforward system. Baruch Hashem, thank God we have Hebrew calendars now, and we know when these things are. The rabbinate at one point was a lot more math than I think I was prepared for. But joking aside, I love this idea. Why do we need this? Why do we need a leap year? Because otherwise our holidays would fall all over the place. Pesach would end up eventually, not in the springtime when it's supposed to happen, when it's commanded to happen in the Torah. Right? Pesach could fall in the summer or in the winter. It could be a beautiful, white, snowy Pesach in December one year. So that's the reason we have to have it. I don't want to say that our calendar system had made a mistake, but it wasn't perfect. And there needed to be something to fix it, something to make it work. And I think it's a wonderful reminder every month as we count the new moon, every month as we cycle through the year, to use Rosh Chodesh as an opportunity to remind ourselves about this imperfection. The Torah commands that we count the months. It tells us what the months are. It's another 1,000 years in the Talmud and the Mishnah that the rabbis set up these rules, or at least established them as a unified version of how we're going to calculate it, how we're going to count it, how every year when you divide by 19, it ends in 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, or 19, that's a leap year. To keep that system working, to keep our holidays where they're supposed to be. Rosh Chodesh presents us this opportunity to think about the past month, to think about the future months, how we want to grow, how we may not be perfect, to remind ourselves to maybe hear the feedback from others, not as criticism, but an opportunity to shine a little bit brighter this new month, and to be a better version of ourselves, to allow our relationships to be a little bit deeper, a little bit more meaningful, to allow us to be a little bit better in our professional life, our personal life. This Shabbat, this Rosh Chodesh, this month, this extra month that we get, I invite you to take the time to think about those things, the ways in your lives we can hear that criticism a little bit nicer, a little bit kinder as feedback, the ways we can grow, the ways we can be better people. Shabbat Shalom and a Chodesh Tov.